Hello, hello, and welcome to the WIT Regatta. It's lovely to see you all. We're very excited to have you all today with us for this exciting job expo, Building Communities at Facebook. For those of you who are new to the WIT Regatta, it was founded by Melody Berenger, and it's a gathering to connect women in tech to mentors, peers, and resources to strengthen our community, advance your career, and to learn from one another. And while we are here to elevate women in tech, we also believe that tech is for everyone, and that goes beyond gender here. And for the past 5 years, this in-person international event has taken place in Seattle, Vancouver, and Amsterdam. But now with COVID, we're elated to welcome you into our second virtual WIT conference. And we really hope to see you next year in person. So I'll be adding various housekeeping disclaimers into the chat in a few moments. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator, Yolanda Airy, our software engineer recruiting lead.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Yolanda Airy. I will be your host today. We're very excited to host you and to have you here join us. We're so thrilled to be part of this virtual job expo and share with you, some information about teams here at Facebook that are currently hiring, and of course, answer all the questions that you have. We want you to relax and enjoy the time that we have together. We're going to kick this off with a short video, and we'll start that video right now.
Stay close to what matters most, where you can find your own balance between life and work. Design your own path and discover new ways to connect, where you create from what you see and live moments that inspire the future. Because we know that what you can do and what you can build are inspired by where you are.
All right, thank you for playing that video. Hope you all enjoyed that video. I would like to actually go ahead and open up the floor to Q&A and introduce our recruiting panelists that we have today. Our team of panelists would shed some lights on some of the teams that they support, and then they will talk about opportunities that we're hiring for. And if you're interested in being contacted by a recruiter, please upload your resume to the link that is posted in the chat. And that link is HTTP. So that's bit.ly/FB@WIT Again, that link is provided in the chat. If you could just click on that link and upload your resume, and we will contact you. So I'm gonna start and introduce myself. My name again, it's Yolanda Airy. I have been at Facebook going on 4 years now. I have been in the recruiting space my entire time here at Facebook. And what I love working at Facebook is, I would say it's community for me. When I think back at it, when I started at Facebook, I actually moved from Utah to the Bay Area, and I had no friends in the Bay Area. But working at Facebook, I was able to meet a lot of friends and make, all kinds of relationships. I've had mentors over the years, support groups, and it's just been an amazing journey. So community here at Facebook is something that we really pride ourselves in, and it's one of my favorite things that I enjoy having here at Facebook. So I would love to, having said that, I would love to introduce our recruiting panelists. We do have 3 other folks that are joining us, and I would love for them to talk about themselves and what they enjoy working at Facebook. So Olivia, Nina, and Bill. Olivia, I'm gonna start with you. If you could just tell us your role, how long you've been at Facebook, and your favorite thing about working at Facebook, and then we will go to Nina and Bill.
Thank you, Yolanda. Hi, everyone. My name's Olivia, and I'm a recruiter on our software engineering leadership teams. And I've been here at Facebook for 3 amazing years. Especially feels longer that we've been in COVID, but it's been really, really fun this whole time. My favorite thing about working at Facebook is really the mission that we have of connecting the world together. Like Yolanda mentioned, it's about community, and it's been awesome to see new projects launch globally, again, with amazing people. What about you, Nina?
Thanks, Olivia. So my name, Nina Megan. I have been here at Facebook now for about 2.5 years. And I honestly have to say my favorite part about working here and being a part of Facebook is just how much I've grown professionally. I definitely think that's due to the infrastructure that Facebook has built for their employees. And really, it's challenging and rewarding work at the same time. And even in a short 2 years, I've grown more than in my, 10 plus years of being in the workforce. But I'd love to now pass it over to our partner, Bill.
Thanks, Nina. Hi, everyone. My name's Bill. I am a software engineering recruiter on our emerging talent recruiting team. And that's going to be for anyone who's currently in school or graduated from the last 3 years. I've been at Facebook for almost 6 years now. So I'm our elder resident of all the team here. My favorite thing, and a lot of what Nina, Olivia, and Yolanda said would be there. But one other thing I'll add also is just I really love just the amount of collaboration that goes on here at Facebook. Whenever there's a project that's something that's cross-functional, someone's always willing to help out. People are just there to volunteer their time, reach out to. When we have interns, all of our employees want to chat with them and help them and just kind of share their experiences and help people learn about the company and how to grow. And so I just really enjoy just the time that people give to one another within Facebook, and just want to help everyone just be the best that they can be.
All right. Thank you all for sharing. I'm really excited to dive into this Q&A. We will start with the questions that were submitted during the registration. And if you do have additional questions, please feel free to post them in the private chat, and our moderators would update us so we can answer those questions for you. So let's go ahead and start with the questions. So the first one that was submitted here, I'm going to read the question out, is how to apply for jobs, get an interview, and excel in the hiring process. How can job seekers stand out when applying to roles at Facebook? How has the virtual work environment impacted recruiting, and what can candidates do to stand out? That is such a great question. I'm actually going to take this one. So I'll start with the first part of that question, which is how do you get an interview here at Facebook, and also how do you excel in the hiring process? So, like every big company, we obviously are always hiring for top talent. The quickest way to stand out is obviously to have a very stellar resume and an updated LinkedIn. The more organized and straightforward your resume is, the easier it is for us to find you and to understand your background. We also encourage you to network as much as you can with folks on LinkedIn if you find people that work at Facebook, and connect with them that way as well. Now, as far as excelling in the hiring process, the one tip that I would give here is obviously come prepared. Typically, when you're going through the hiring process here at Facebook, you will be paired with a recruiter, and that recruiter would guide you and keep you posted step by step on what to expect throughout that process. I will say, in order to be very successful, definitely leverage that partnership with your recruiter. Ask questions as much as you can, in every stage. Don't be afraid to ask questions to the recruiter on little things from how to prepare, what you should wear, or where the directions are if you need that information. But preparation is key in being successful here throughout the hiring process. And as far as applying to roles at Facebook, the follow-up question was, how can job seekers stand out? So applying to roles at Facebook, obviously going to our website, facebook.com/careers. We have a lot of information on our careers page on what opportunities are available currently, how to find those opportunities. You could filter by location. But one key thing I would say here is, when applying for roles at Facebook, make sure that your resume and your LinkedIn are aligned and they're updated as much as possible. in that way, because a lot of times we actually also find talent ourselves. We don't just wait for folks to apply. Sometimes we proactively go out there and source and look at people's LinkedIn. So that's a very key thing to have updated. And then just the last piece of that question, which was, how has the virtual work environment impacted recruiting, and what can candidates do to stand out? So when it comes to the virtual work environment, the past year, we have actually been hiring virtually. So in the past, pre-COVID, you would come into the location that you're interviewing for. Now all our interviews are happening online. So the best way to be successful in that environment, I would say, is to really keep your surroundings as quiet as possible, and kind of create your own environment so that you can be focused during that interview process and less distracted, and you can get the best out of it. But yeah, so that is that question. I'm gonna read the next one, and then I would have Nina answer that second question, which is curious what the tech industry would look like in post-COVID environment. How would that impact the many opportunities and lifestyle? Follow-up question, how to make career switches or changes interviewing at Facebook?
Great question. I hope I can answer it fully in length for you all. Obviously, curious around what the tech industry would look like post-COVID. I think we're all seeing that now. Major change, obviously, at Facebook, as well as the remote aspect. A lot of companies are, able to see that productivity does not dip just because everyone's at home. We ourselves are making this. I'm a prime example. I actually did take advantage of our remote as well. And it's been an easy transition, to be honest. It wasn't anything crazy or life altering. And also you see this on platforms. So also just seeing technology itself change. Our platforms in general, I work on the infrastructure production engineering side of the engineering house. And we thought we knew where our infrastructure ceiling was. And then COVID happened, right? And we realized we need to change our products and platforms to maintain the traffic that our sites and everything is now seeing. And in addition to our products, even our Oculus and portals, they ended up selling out during COVID. So realizing that there is this need in the world just to also upgrade the technology and make sure everyone has access to it. So that's even just from our tech side. And you obviously, everyone, we're out using Zoom now. I'm sure everyone, not everyone had a Zoom prior to COVID, and just seeing that change in platforms across the tech industry in general. When it comes to, obviously, like we said, the impact, opportunities, and lifestyle, this is just it. There's so many also women in the workforce that maybe have had to take a leave due to child support, or anything really in the real world, that sometimes women have to take a break. You don't need to anymore. And that's something that we emphasize here as well, that we want everyone and their lifestyle to be able to work remote due to COVID. There's been a ton of flexibility on the business side. I have a teammate personally who even takes Wednesdays off to help with childcare and her mom, to alleviate some of the day-to-day stress. So I think that's pretty common in the tech industry in general, but here at Facebook, it's incredible, the flexibility and the change that COVID has created to really, truly support the different lifestyles out there who work for Facebook. In regards to making career switches or changes interviewing at Facebook, I guess the biggest thing I can always say, on top of a lot of Yolanda mentioned, I think a lot of the interviewing here at Facebook, one thing I would add is, obviously, as a recruiter and sourcer myself, we kind of give you the keys to the kingdom. So I'll be honest in that sense, where the reason that we're prepping you on certain things is it will come out. I always use this example of candidates. I hire leadership, and we have a project section where most people say, oh, I have tons of projects that could obviously relate to a ton of different examples. So there's not a lot of prep involved, because you're like, I could definitely think on my toes. And that ends up being the most critical section that most people fail, because that's the least prepped. So I can even account as well. My Facebook interview was one of the only interviews that I fully prepped, a couple weeks in advance, physically wrote down project examples. We all know you leave an interview and you say, oh man, I had that other project that could have worked great. And I kind of had a better example. I mean, I'll be honest, I hear even from candidates as well, just physically trying to write examples down, usually that triggers your brain to think of those better examples that then you can go back, scribble it out and say, oh, now I got the best one. And I will be honest as well, Facebook interviews are a little tough to read. This was something I wish people told me, is that, you know, we are trained to obviously not show bias, or sometimes people say, oh, read the body language, or you could tell how they're speaking, whether it's good or bad. Never let that bother you. I think a lot of our interviewers are definitely trained to be very monotone, or very, you know, not show too many reactions throughout the interview. So don't let that discourage you. I know I felt that when I walked away. I said, man, no one seemed too excited. Maybe I didn't get it, but ended up being great reviews. So those are a couple of the tips there. And even career changes everything. Don't hesitate to apply to roles. I saw a question come in as well around, what if you don't have those years of experience? Yolanda mentioned it. Have your resume show all the other features. So I see a lot of people not really tailor their resume. I'll be honest. I could even myself tailor my resume to every different job that you apply to. And I suggest people do the same, because we don't know when we're looking at your resume that you have all those boxes to check, unless we can visibly see it on your LinkedIn or resume. So I always just say, look at the job description and, you know, make sure you can provide examples. So as we're reading the resume, we blatantly see where those dots are connected outside of the years of experience. Again, those are usually our minimum requirements. So we're looking around those years, right? So if you have everything else, just show that in your LinkedIn and resume, and hopefully we give you a call. But I hope that answers that through and through. Yolanda, if you would like, I can read the next one for Bill and yourself.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Absolutely. So what opportunities are there for Canadian residents who want to work with Facebook?
Yeah, so I'll kick it off. I'm going to be the villain for some of you in the beginning, and then Yolanda gets to be the hero right after that. So last year we announced that we were going to have remote work opportunities in the US and Canada. So we do have those overall, but where I kind of become the villain is for our newer hires, those of you in school, those of you who recently graduated within the last 3 years or so, the remote work opportunities are in the US only. Unfortunately, we don't have remote work that is there for folks who are just recently graduated or wrapping up in school. All of our internships would be in the U.S. as well, and so the Canadian work opportunities are there. And Yolanda can get to tell you a little bit about it, but just give you a set of there's a level setting of where exactly you can start and opt into it.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Just like Bill said, we do have roles open for Canada. In fact, starting yesterday, we actually expanded some of the roles.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Did we lose Yolanda? We might have lost Yolanda.
I'm happy to help out, or maybe until Yolanda gets back, in regards to Canadian hiring. I think Bill touched on it as well. We're slowly starting to roll things out, even when everything went remote. I know Mark was out public that we want to be very progressive in the remote space, and we want to be industry leaders. So to be completely transparent, we're learning this ourselves and trying to sprint as fast as we can to be those industry leaders. So even if it is something that's not right now, I guarantee it'll be in the future. Hopefully within the next year or two, realistically. But, I know myself, I talked to a lot of Canadian leaders, and they are looking to, hey, is the remote piece here yet? It's the not yet piece, I guess you could say. So even if it's not right now, we're working on it across the board. So we recently, like Yolanda said too, there are certain teams. So obviously as a company as well, we don't roll everything out throughout the entire company day one, almost in phases, as most, I guess you could say even life is like that. But usually there are a couple teams or orgs that will roll out the remote in different parts of the world. And then obviously the other companies will start, or other orgs will start following suit. So even if you do see certain postings for certain roles, that might be only for that organization right now. But again, I think it'll be coming soon. So that kind of wraps that one. I think we lost Yolanda.
We lost Yolanda.
Um,
I can take over asking the question since you guys are doing all the talking. And I'm sorry, Beth, I'm not a recruiter, but I am the partner for the Women in Tech Regatta. Welcome everyone. Thank you for spending this time with us. And if you do have additional questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat. We will try to get to them, but we are these kind of cover quite a bit, so we're hopefully going to answer your questions up front. So the next question is around also hiring in different regions. We did have a question come in specific to hiring tech teams in Chicago. Bill, again, if you want to kick it off with any entry-level roles or internships, do we have anything in Chicago? And then maybe Olivia, why don't you talk about just kind of all the regions we're hiring for and kind of what kind of teams are based in what regions?
Yeah, again, I'll be the villain for a minute. Unfortunately, we don't have opportunities for internships or recent graduates in the Chicago office. I am from Chicago originally, so I wish we had more folks there. I know we're growing that space, but we do hire our internships in our engineering offices for kind of the new grad and recent graduates are Seattle, the Bay Area, Menlo Park, San Francisco, around South Bay. LA is now expanding with some teams, Boston, New York, Washington, DC. Those are the major opportunities for students and more recent grads. And then Olivia, I'll hand it over to you for Chicago for beyond that.
Thank you. And as Nina mentioned, on the leadership side, it's things that we're testing out. I think we've just started with a couple teams that are able to be remote, and those teams are the Oculus and AR VR teams, of course, taking on that virtual environment and platform. In the Bay Area, we have a lot of teams that are, of course, with our headquarters working on our new projects, embedded within our Facebook Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, all those great teams. In LA, we have teams that are growing with Oculus, again, AR, VR. In our Seattle markets, a lot of the teams there are focused on our gaming with Oculus and also our marketplace teams. They're really thinking about the expansion of the Facebook marketplace. Maybe people are buying new plants or they're expanding their small businesses. We're thinking about that, and all the way across through our Instagram shops, through computer vision, all that fashion sense is hiring for teams out in New York. And in Boston, we have a couple of groups that are also hiring for the lab teams within the Reality Lab. So a lot of different things in our other environments where we have some offices, maybe Burlingame, Texas. No expansion of software engineering roles yet, but I know Nina and her groups might have some things all across the US as well.
And welcome back, Yolanda. We just addressed basically where we are hiring, taking off from the Canada question and then adding on the Chicago market. So Olivia kind of gave us an overview of everything. So I will pass it back to you for question number 5. Oh, you're on mute.
All right, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, good. Okay, awesome. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened with my connection there, but thank you, Olivia, for running through with all of that. So let's go ahead and keep it moving. The next question, we're going to give this to Bill. And the question is, what advice can you give folks who want to transition into a technical role from a non-technical role?
Yeah, and that's a great question. For those who are looking to make a transition, I think this is an industry, there's a lot of opportunity to teach yourself and to get involved after the fact. You don't need to necessarily be a computer science major in school or have taken like AP engineering or classes in high school to get there. There's a lot of different ways where you can kind of, whether it's going to coding boot camp, self-teach yourself, Coursera, things like that, where you can find and build that baseline of knowledge and really get an understanding for coding. At that point too, I think it's just then experimenting with different things, building apps, doing freelance projects. And that's a great way just to kind of build up your resume and get familiar with stuff. Some companies have programs that, including Facebook has one, where you can we have the rotational engineering program. That's something that is something you'd have to have a couple years of industry experience in. At least it's for folks who don't go through the traditional, I I majored in computer science at Carnegie Mellon, and I got a master's degree at UIUC, and here I am. But the way to kind of then fill the gap into that spot would be also, I've talked to a bunch of different people who work at Facebook who, someone I just spoke with who was doing on our mobile team. He was a music major, and he decided he just didn't like doing music, or he liked music, but not as professionally. And so he just started doing just coding, just building apps, doing things on his own. And then he went and offered to do some freelance projects. He'd go to a place and say, hey, can I build your app for free? And everyone's going to say yes to that, because if it's not good, there was no investment to them, right? And if it's something great, then you just have something on your resume there and you get to show. And so trying to find those opportunities to do freelance stuff. Actually, my old manager too left recruiting to go into front-end engineering, and he did the same thing. After he went through a coding boot camp, he did some freelance projects, and he even said he was afraid to do to take paid projects right away, because there was more pressure when they were paying him, because at least when he was doing all the free work, if they didn't like it, they couldn't get mad at him, right? So it was pressure free. But that's just telling these stories, because he wanted to build his resume, right? And engineers who have come into Facebook that didn't go through that traditional CS through school path, have done this too. And it's just building that resume, building apps or websites, or just getting stuff on GitHub, just building up a resume so that then you can apply to those paid positions, and that is going to really give you a lot of going to open a lot of doors for you just doing that. It can be hard, I know, sometimes to offer to work for free, but the investment that that you put in yourself will pay off in the long run with that. The rotational engineering program, again, is something at Facebook is it's there to focus on hard skill development, mentorship, community building, and business exposure for those making that transition. And they're looking for people who have about 2 years in industry with that experience. It doesn't mean 2 years at a tech company doing work. It's 2 years of building apps on your own, doing some freelance stuff. It's just building your resume and putting things on there so that you can come in and show that you have that baseline knowledge, that foundational knowledge of programming, and then you'll be able to come in and do the work with them when you got here for Facebook. So yeah, just my advice is for everyone, just there's a lot of different opportunities to just researching it, finding those ways to build your skills and grow yourself, and putting it out there in the world for people to see. And it's just that investment in yourself will help pay off with those opportunities to apply for jobs in the future.
Thank you, Bill. That's such a good in-depth response. Love it. Thank you. So let's move on to the next question here, which is, what are your tips to expand your network even when you're not looking for a job change? What are some tips and tricks for navigating the job market for director and leadership and above roles? As a senior leader, how do you renew, redefine, and re-energize yourself in this ever-changing market? And I'm going to give this to Nina and Olivia. Both of you want to chime in on this? Whoever wants to start. This is such a great question.
Yeah, I'm happy to start and pass it over to my partner over there. This is a great question. This is something actually I'm working on with my production engineering org leaders now. Especially if you've been a leader for the most part, usually you've been at a company for multiple years. So your network naturally doesn't grow except for your internal company. One thing that we're working on is, just finding leaders to find external networks that they would maybe join outside of Facebook. So finding on LinkedIn, maybe some, obviously there's a ton of women in tech at groups that we just suggest, hey, jump in there, start going to maybe some virtual events, or if you would like to, obviously not everyone has the time to also just go to a million events to help build their network. However, just simply being a part of them on LinkedIn and finding maybe some common ground with some other people in the group, or posting. I always recommend too, simply posting your on LinkedIn in these networking groups. That gets attention, that gets you more requests to link up and things of that nature. It's kind of how you just start from a LinkedIn perspective of building that external network. And obviously tips and tricks for navigating the job market as leaders. I would always say one of the toughest things I see leaders here at Facebook when interviewing is you're rusty by nature. You've been at a company for, 10, 8, whatever, how many years. It's been a while since you interviewed. I will be fully transparent and recommend if you can interview with other companies, or at least a one-off before Facebook to brush some dust off. Facebook loops are intense, obviously. It is something you need to prep for. And again, just the intensity of them, it's very hard to come off not interviewing for years on end and then hitting our full interview loop as the first one. It's tough. So I would recommend, even if there's maybe some companies that reach out to you. I know all of us pesky recruiters in mail and message everyone on LinkedIn to try and get them to come to Facebook. I'm sure there's some companies out there that maybe don't pique your interest, but would be worth interviewing just to, again, simply brush the dust off. I also always recommend, if you know anyone here at Facebook, even if they're not in essentially your org specifically, if you're, coming for production engineering, you don't know any production engineers, that's okay. There's a lot of portions of our behavioral interviews that span across every org. So just simply asking a friend, hey, how is interviewing? What are some things, Facebook looks for, just to kind of get your brain moving in that direction, also helps. And I did see a question come through similar to the Director Plus, do you take on internal referrals? Is that like the best way to get a E-suite or leadership role? It is a plus, but we look for the best person for the role, whether that is us just cold reaching out or someone who applies. But again, if you have an internal referral, definitely ask them to refer you in. It's always fun and exciting. It's also fun to have that person in your corner, and more so for gaps. We see people that maybe don't interview as great as they could have, and there might be some gaps. If you have any internal reference that could maybe pick up some places that you missed, that's always great too. But that, again, you don't have to know somebody here. Like I said, we go for the most qualified person for that role. But I want to stop there. I don't want to take all the thunder away. So I'd love to pass over to Olivia to add anything as well.
You're great. Love it. I definitely double tap on a lot of those areas that Nina called out. Great gold tips on really asking for referrals in your network. And this is really folks who can speak to your experience in working in the environment. I think there are things that in the interview, it can be, a really quick conversation, but having their additional endorsement, they worked with you, it's great to help with the overall interview, but it's again optional and just helpful, but not needed. And then a couple other things I would say, in addition, of course, to events like this and in networking, is that a lot of our executive roles are things that the teams have been preparing for. They're working on long-term engagement. These can be roles that are potentially confidential and we don't have posted on our external site. And so it's things where if you have the opportunity to chat with recruiters, chat with other colleagues on the team, and really just share with us as much as possible what you're interested in, what type of teams and projects that you would feel passionate about leading and driving new change with, so that when those roles open in our privacy AI teams or our video ranking teams, you'll be right there for us to have these conversations. And we also understand that as you continue to make changes in your career, that requires transitions. Maybe you're completing performance evaluations yourself. Maybe you're working on projects that are going to be launching. And so all of that is something that we definitely understand and want to help you in making that transition as well. So it takes time is the final piece. And I think it's always better to, start looking before you actually need to. And I think the difference with COVID is a lot of things changed really quickly, right? And so we started opening up the conversation a lot more and being comfortable with it. And, we love hearing from all of you what things are going on. And if you want us to check in a couple months, we definitely will. So those would be the tips I would say. Just hop on the call, quick 15, 30 minutes with the recruiter, but down the line, it'll definitely save you some time.
Thank you, Olivia. Great. So this next question is my favorite question, and it's, how does Facebook create opportunities for women, especially minority women? What is Facebook doing to help diversity within the company? What are some of the challenges found when trying to hire with diversity in mind? And also, how has COVID impacted diversity and inclusion hiring? Olivia, I'm going to let you kick this one off, and then I may chime in at the end.
Okay, great. So I think that the COVID impact, first I'll start there, is I think some of my colleagues have mentioned this already, but it's really has built this understanding of everyone's different lifestyle, the different type of roles and hats that they play in their personal life. That's now their work office. They're now a chef, they're now a teacher, you know, playing all of these additional areas along with being an engineering leader or engineering lead. And so it's things that we need to understand more about, being able to be direct with our communication. I know some of my colleagues as well have blocked off certain self-care days for themselves in the month. They have their preferred schedule on their status, just really opening more doors for communication. And I think that that's also helped us as we've communicated with more candidates and more interviewers. It's opened up the doors for us to say, hey, you can have a chat with us without you know, stepping off of your couch. You can dial in remotely and not have to worry about getting a sitter or you know, making changes to come and interview. So I like what Facebook has been doing internally. Again, for us, that's community, and some of the things that I've seen us really kick off and have been very proud to be a part of is that our teams here have given not just support, but resources for women to feel empowered in their career. So programs around mentorship, being able to have awesome events like Women in Leadership and have Serena be one of our VIP guests. It's very empowering. It makes us feel like there's a lot of support. And I think it starts from the top. You know, having that executive sponsorship and having everyone be responsible. You know, all of it is a challenge for everybody here. It's not just one person's role or one group, but those are some of my thoughts. And I think that we're actively hiring for leaders to come in and build and grow that landscape, because we don't know it all, and we need to have you know, more voices to build a more inclusive culture. So that's my thoughts. Yolanda, I'm sure you have an amazing answer as well.
Yeah, no, you actually said a lot of what I was thinking about, but I'm just gonna add a couple of things to that, which would just be around, you know, how has COVID impacted diversity and inclusion hiring. What we're seeing is, especially with my team, we do hire people to work remotely across the US and Canada. And so they don't necessarily have to work to be relocated to a Facebook site, if you will, right? So what we're seeing is that we're seeing that the diversity numbers are actually going up, because now we can just hire people in a lot of areas that we, you know, that we don't have a Facebook site, and now they can just apply and work from home, essentially. So that's how COVID has actually even impacted us positively when it comes to diversity hiring. Now, on the other piece on, you know, when it comes to opportunities for women, especially minority women, and how Facebook is creating those. There's a lot of programs that we have internally that is continuously helping both in finding talent and also in keeping the talent that we have. And we do host a lot of events such as this, where we entertain conversations, entertain engagement with the audience to engage people who are interested in Facebook and who would otherwise not find us or have this opportunity with us. And then another thing is we do have a lot of internal programs and groups that support minorities and women. So in fact, I'm actually part of the Black women group at Facebook. I'm the Bay Area chapter lead, and there's several events that we do, and there's several such a employee resource groups, we call them ERGs, that you can be part of once you start at Facebook. So you don't have to feel like you're starting alone and you don't know anyone. You can actually build community off the bat while you start working at Facebook. But I could say a lot about that topic, so I'm gonna leave it there. But thank you, whoever asked this question, such a great question. So let's just move on to the next question. Which is, how does Facebook use AI either to improve customer experience or in general? Olivia, I'll give this one to you.
Thank you. So I think to branch off of Facebook using AI, I think the biggest piece that we're evolving is also the fairness across AI, and that begins with having, again, a diverse leadership panel, diverse researchers, and diverse engineers. And so all these different backgrounds is really crucial for us to help build the foundation before we take on more remote teams, take on more projects across Portal, Oculus. I saw one of the questions is asking about if we have teams that are focused on military hiring, and we definitely do. We have lots of partnerships with different groups, and being able to understand that the skills around management, the leadership principles, all of those people leader skills are definitely transferable. They're very important to building the community. And so all of these different perspectives tie into the platform and tie into where Facebook wants to take the understanding of how we can build a better customer experience. And this can be from our users using Facebook shopping, or maybe they're thinking about how we can build out business inbox teams. So really thinking about the areas across natural language processing, human sentiment and behaviors, what is polite language in different parts of the world. Facebook is really leveraging the global data sets that we have, and really, again, the responsibility on how we can build that environment before we take on more connectivity. So exciting things, but that's why we need more of you to come join and help.
Thank you, Olivia. All right, so we're going to go on to our last question here, and then we will start taking questions that are coming in from the chat. This question, I'm going to give it to Bill. And Bill, I'm so excited to hear your answer. And so the question is, what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome in your current role? Number one. And then apart from your knowledge of your job function, how do you add value to your current organization? And finally, can you talk about a time where you felt supported by your team?
Yeah, a lot of pressure knowing that after that little intro there. That great questions all around here. I think to kick it off, the first one, the biggest challenge I had to overcome in my current role as a recruiter. I previously worked at Deloitte doing recruiting, and as I was a consultant actually before that. And Deloitte is they've been around a while. They're good at understanding process and how organizations work. They have ways they do things, and that's not a critique of any of it. I bring this all up because when I got to Facebook, it was like the exact opposite. And just in the sense of their way of doing work and the way tech does work, it's totally different. And it was like such a eye-opening wake-up call. It was like, seriously, I feel like it was like one of those cartoons where the eyes pop out of the character, just because like how different things were. And it took a while to get used to it. And at Deloitte, we talk over email, and we don't use chat quite as much here. Like we use calendar invites and things like that. I had a tech talk that I was doing. I was the recruiter at UCLA at the time. And the day before the tech talk, I'd sent a calendar invite to the speaker, and he replied, he was like, "Wait, is this still on? You never chatted me about it." And I sent him a calendar invite weeks before, and he didn't have a hotel booked. He didn't have flights booked. He got it all done. But I just was like, such an eye-opening, weird world. I would email people to ask them to come with me to things, get no reply. And someone was like, "Yeah, you got to message them." It's just a different way of doing work. And we've definitely taken on we've gotten more process now and a little bit. We're definitely, when I started in 2015, it was very different than it is today in some of that regard. But that was like an eye-opening wake-up call for me about just like how to do business in tech. So the second question, apart from the knowledge of the job function, how can you add value to this to your organization? Yolanda brought up, and I think our resource groups, or just their employee resource groups, are really a great way that I think people can give back and beyond just their current job functions. I mean, Women at, Black at, Latin at, Pride at, and just a few of them. There's just a lot of ways for you to help, bring to the company different perspectives and ideas and share your values and help us grow and inform and educate people within the company on different topics, which is right now within recruiting. Over the last year, we've added, we're really focused on allyship in the wake of a lot of the news with police brutality and what's been going on. And it's about ways that we have different affinity groups and how groups just coming together to talk about and educate and share with each other. And obviously, as a white man, I'm in our Aspiring Allies group, which is a way for me to just kind of get to learn, just to educate myself. And we, talk about different topics in the news and how we can be better allies to our friends, and it's been a really great way just to hear from, people who are experiencing different things and educate yourselves and then pass that on. The third part is how you felt supported at a time. And I'll just say these affinity, my story in this is going to be, I have a 2.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old, small children. And it's educating how we are trying to raise our kids now and making sure that we are bringing, more diverse voices and diverse thought into how we're raising our children. And I really credit my colleagues for helping me and sharing their experiences and their backgrounds. And that's really a way I think that you can really add value beyond just your role at Facebook. And it's something I really love about the company. And so where did I feel that support? So I mentioned I have little children. They are a joy. They are not here right now, so no one can come barging through the door. Facebook offers for, parental leave. For dads, it's 16 weeks. I took it both times. I remember with my first, when my son was being born, I told my manager's manager and her manager, like the boss and the boss. And I was a little nervous, taking 4 months off. I mean, I got hugs, I got congratulations. They wanted to talk about, their experiences, with kids coming. It was so welcoming and so wonderful. I felt totally like at ease to go away. Another senior manager in the team said to me, like, don't think about this place at all while you're gone. We have you covered. Just go and be a parent and go take care of your family. That's what's important. And nobody, literally, I was supposed to leave my manager like an actual critical piece of like data he needed before I left. I forgot to give it to him. He forgot about it too. So he actually had to ping me while I was on that leave. And he was so apologetic. He felt so bad. And I was like, this is my fault. And he's like, no, I shouldn't have pinged you. I shouldn't have done that. I just felt so supported during that time. I didn't think about this place one bit. It was so refreshing and amazing to get to do that. The second time I went on leave, I was going to have, when my daughter was born, I was supposed to be when performance reviews were being delivered. And when that happens, you find out what your bonus is. And so obviously you want to hear what that is. And my manager, it was like, different manager this time was like, I need to go ask HR if I can have that talk with you while you're on leave. And I was like, no, you can have the talk with me. Let's do it. I want to know, obviously. And he's like, no, I'm not going to just schedule it. I got to go find out. I mean, they took it really seriously. And I came back literally, and the people who filled in for me sat down with me after meetings, just to show me what they did, got me back, transitioned me into what was going on. I truly was just like, I'm so appreciative of it. I know friends in other tech companies who are discouraged from taking that leave. It was a big deal when Zuck announced he was going to take some when his children were born. They really mean it. I truly felt so supported there. We experienced this in COVID separately, just the remote work policy, we didn't have ratings the first half because they just didn't want us to fear about anything going on as we were sent home. And I just know we are valued more than just like people on a computer or people in the recruiter's case looking at resumes. And it means a lot. And that's truly what I love being here at Facebook.
Thank you so much, Bill. I love everything you said. Thank you. So we're now going to take questions from the audience that were submitted during the presentation. I'm going to go with the first one that came in. So this question is, how many rounds of interviews are there or steps of hiring in the process? I can also chime in on this one, but Olivia, I'm going to let you answer this one for us.
Okay, so on the leadership side, we have 6 portions of the final or full interview. That covers 3 portions on people management and 3 pieces on the technical scope. For us on the leadership side, we need you to just have enough exposure on the technical depth to step in as a manager and help drive the conversations. But through the technical conversations, we ask to define the scalability, the architecture, the product design. All of those are also areas that on the individual contributor side, Yolanda can share more about that, they check into, but on the people management side, we want to understand your motivations for being a manager or leader, what's been awesome about growing senior folks in your team, and also sharing times where you've worked through performance evaluations, you've talked through how you can help grow junior engineers on your team as well. And then on the cross-functional leadership side, what have you done to help organize other pillars, other groups, really help the entire leadership engineering culture overall? So those are portions of the leadership interview.
Thank you, Olivia. And in general, just as far as all the roles across Facebook, so obviously Olivia's response is really specific there to the leadership team, but typically the way our process goes is there is the initial hiring step, which is you will talk to someone that is a source or recruiter at Facebook, where they emailed you, and then you guys you speak on the phone for 30 or 45 minutes or so. So that's what we call like a very pre-screen initial interview, really, at Facebook. And then the next step typically would be a follow-up interview that is much more official now. That's an interview with a hiring manager. So typically those tend to happen over the phone as well, or VC currently. And then if you do pass that round, then we now move you to on-site, which would be the final stage of the process. And in that stage, that's where you get to actually have multiple interviews. Now, throughout the process, your recruiter or whoever you're working with would really prepare you and give you all the information you need, so you know what to expect step by step, and what to prepare for. But that final stage will have multiple interviews where you would speak with 4 or 5 people in some cases, with a break in between, and they tend to go for 45 minutes each. Depending on the role, there'll be different things that you'll be assessed on, but that's just a high level overview of the flow of the recruiting process for Facebook. All right.
And I'll just say really fast too, for our internships are only usually 2 interviews, and for full-time roles, it's about 4 interviews total, 1 screen, and then if you pass that, 2 more technical and a behavioral. But interns only do 2, usually 2 to 3, and pre-screens vary within university recruiting. So some pipelines do it and some don't.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is compensation very different for remote work? The short answer is no to this question, but it really comes down to our compensation philosophy, right? So the way our compensation philosophy is we really pay based upon the cost of talent per location, right? Regardless of where that location is. So by default of that, say someone in New York, will probably be getting a compensation that's the market range for New York, which is different from, say, someone in Canada, right, based upon the cost of talent for that geographical area. So if you're working remotely, it will come down to, where you working remotely. So if you're working remotely in Canada, it's very different from if you're working remotely in New York, or if you're working remotely in Seattle, because the reason why it varies, each region has certain legalities. So for example, if I'm working remotely in California, there's a state income tax in California that is not applicable, say, in Texas, right? So all these different variables play into it. So long story short, it's not super different with remote, but it really just comes down to geographically where you're based. But our compensation philosophy is broken down into, you have a base salary, a bonus, and equity. This is for industry professionals. And then of course, based upon the role, the recruiter would obviously share more information with you when you're at the point of offer to go over the compensation. All right. Anyone want to add anything to that? I think that's pretty much it, but I just wanted to see if there's anything I missed. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question, which is, does Facebook offer fall internships for project management intern or new grad roles, as opposed to software engineering intern or new grad roles? Are most teams looking for someone with previous tech/non-tech experience? Bill, I'll let you take this.
Yeah, so I'll kick it off. For fall internships, we do have a fall intern program. Overall, for this year, for 2021, software engineering, it's full. Almost all teams are full at this point. We are not taking any more resumes. There are a couple of specialty tech roles, usually within the AR/VR space right now, that have 1 or 2 openings still. You can find any of our openings for internships at facebook.com/careers/university. And you can filter by internships then. If you just do facebook.com/careers, you'll see a tab. One of them is for students. And so that's where the /university comes in. So if you missed that part, don't worry, you can find it easy. But you'll see what is still open right now. Going forward, we have made a change starting in 2022 to our internship program in North America. And we're only focusing on summer interns, with the exception of students who are participating in a co-op program. So we're going to be primarily for summer moving forward, unless you are in one of those co-op programs. There is one in Seattle, I know, with Northeastern, so there may be some of you on here who could be an exception to that. But as a whole, that's where we're looking at fall internships now. And then the second question about PM, when we are looking at, it's not the tech that matters so much, for sure. It's about really what project management experience you have and how you've done it. So whether that's you've done it in you were a student leader, like in a student organization working on that. Maybe you did something on the side you worked for, something in a nonprofit you work for, like you just made your church or anything like that. Anything that's just like where you should demonstrate leadership experience. That's what we're looking for. It doesn't have to be in a tech space. It's nice when it has some tech on there, but like I wouldn't be afraid if you don't have it on there. And then if you are looking for ways to add it, again, I would just say look for ways to kind of be like, if you're doing like a team project, how can you be the voice of that team? How can you be the one who kind of drove the project plan? That's always a way to put on your resume. But like hackathons, project teams, stuff like that, anything outside of it, that's what we look for, tech or non-tech. So just try and be a leader.
Thank you, Bill. We have, let's see, we still have a couple more questions and then we're almost done. So this next question is, what types of opportunities are available for non-technical leadership positions in Seattle? In fact, I'm just gonna answer this question and feel free anyone to chime in here in the interest of time. So when it comes to all the opportunities that we have, this is a very specific question. So I'm just gonna say all our teams, all the positions that we have, we keep all this information on our careers page, which is facebook.com/careers/jobs. And then you can also do /Seattle if you're looking for specifically in the Seattle area. But we have all that information on our website. The good thing about our careers page is that you can actually go in and filter specific things that you're looking for. If there's a job title, location, or even years of experience that you're looking for, because we have so much information on that link. That's why I really just want to answer this by saying that we have all that information on our website. We definitely have, teams in all the groups to answer that question. So I think we're getting close to time here. So I'm going to wrap this up and make that the last question in the interest of time. I just want to thank you all again for joining us today. As we shared earlier, we are hiring. If you're interested in being contacted by a recruiter, please upload your resume on that link, which we had on the chat group, which was the bit.ly/fb@witjobs. Thank you, and we hope to see you again in our Women in Tech Regatta sessions later this week and next.